I remember my mother, brothers, and sisters standing with tears in their eyes, all wondering if they should begin saying their painful goodbyes. For my father could no longer move, and wasn't even able to speak. It was obvious to us all with every passing moment he continued to get weak. His skin had lost its color, his eyes lost their shine, and even though he no longer knew me, I thought he would be fine. After all, he was my dad, stronger than ever, nothing could get in his way. I continued to imagine him getting better. Oh, how I longed for that day. For him to be just like the month before, healthy and just fine, with the color of his skin still radiant and his eyes continuing to shine. I remember moving closer to his bed and staring into his eyes, hoping by examining him he would be easier to recognize. For he wore a mask on his face and tubes were everywhere. I then moved in a little closer, trying not to cry, but continuing to stare. It was hard for me to believe that that moment may be close to the end of his life. After all, how could one disease take a man away from his family, his children, his wife? "Dad," I then whispered. "Daddy, please hear me. Oh, Daddy, please. You'll get through this. You have to be strong and beat this disease. You have to see me graduate and one day give me away." I then began to cry and felt there was nothing more I could say. I remember feeling extremely helpless and then terribly mad that I couldn't do something to fix everything and help save my dad. I then stood on the side of his bed and began to pray that God would spare this one soul and not take my father away. I needed him to stay with me, at least for a few more years. I told him how much I loved him over and over through my tears. Then surprisingly his eyes moved and his face seemed to light. I thought that was a good sign that he was going to fight. But then he began looking up and stared off into a world of his own. A world his soul would journey to, but journey all alone. His face seemed so peaceful, and a tear then left his eye. I grabbed his hand and whispered, "Oh, Daddy, please don't cry." But it was obvious that he began to realize what our tears were for we were all crying because our days with him would soon be no more. We all then knew it was time for him to leave, time for him to die. And with that thought in mind, he let out his final sigh.